Good morning. I am Makiba Foster, and I am the co-founder of Archiving the Black Web. And I guess it's my responsibility to bring it on home, and so we'll do that very quickly. But if you are if you're not familiar with Archiving the Black Web, we are a group whose mission is to develop and collaborate develop a collaborative strategy focused on research, funding, training, collection development, and public engagement to guide archiving practices for web content about Black people. Our goal is to contribute viable and equitable solutions to increase available collections on Black web content by training Black memory workers to produce web archive collections and by supporting Black collecting institutions to formally create sustainable web archiving programs. And so last year we had the opportunity to present on this topic. And so for the sake of time, that presentation was recorded, and it can give you a lot more context and information about the project. But this will be sort of a high level update about what we're doing. So last year we told you about the project, and now we've actually been able to start that project. And as I said, I'm the co-founder, and Zakiya is also one of our project leads. So she's a little bit of everywhere and everything, but we're trying to do good work and create opportunities for access to the practice of web archiving. And so, like I said, we'll talk to you a little bit about how we're moving forward with this project. It is a 3-year project funded by the Andrew Mellon Foundation, and we're excited that we are moving into the work. So updates around our goals and deliverables. So one of the things that that's important to us is to share that Archiving the Black Web is made up of 3 parts. That's training, research, and sustainability. And so today, Zakiya will talk to you more about the research angle of Archiving the Black Web, and I'll talk to you a bit more about access and training. But one of the ways in which we are trying to really grapple with Blackness on the web, how do we create more opportunities for memory workers who have been dedicated to collecting the stories and narratives around Black life? One of the things that we're thinking through is what exactly is the Black web? We as archivists and memory workers are collaborating with humanists and social scientists in researching and mapping the Black web from the lived experience to theory to the practice of web archiving. And so in trying to answer this question, the research is intended to ground our training program within a framework that contextualizes Black people and their experiences within the larger world while informing our work school curriculum to help train students to create web archives related to Blackness. So as I said, the research is combining the academic research and archival practice to help define the concept of the Black web. And then the work school, and I think this probably will be the first audience that we can actually say work school to and not have to explain work. But our work school is the training program that hopes to create a new generation of practitioners equipped with sound technical skills, but informed also by their cultural competencies and their ways of knowing. I think that we believe it's very important that there are ways in which people access information and creating web archives and being able to understand those cultural things that may, for outside groups, they do not understand, but why those things might be important to a web archive. And so from there, I'm going to turn it over to Zakiya so she can talk about the research part of this project, which is sort of special, we think, because we're working with scholars to try to think through this particular and theorize around it.
So, like Makiba just shared, Archiving the Black Web has this research component that we thought was especially important as we, sort of named this project Archiving the Black Web, and we found ourselves sitting with this question of like, what do we even mean by the Black Web? Just like if we were to say the Black people, you could ask which Black people? Black French people, Black immigrants, like what does it mean to say the Black web? And so instead of assuming that there is sort of a singular answer to that question, as there is Black people are not a monolith, so the Black web is also not a monolith. We decided to look at this from a framework of mapping. So this initiative is entitled Preserving, Mapping, and Describing the Black Web. Again, to sort of note that it is like its own world that is not just something that we can sort of put one descriptor to. But if we had to put like an initial sort of broad definition, it would be Black life as it exists online and the field of scholarship about the Black web. And so the research initiative is a collaboration with the Center for Communication, Media, Innovation, and Social Change at Northeastern University. And that center is led by Dr. Meredith Clark. And so as we approach this with going with the mapping metaphor, I forgot where I was recently when I was like, I can just take metaphors really, really far. But going further with the mapping metaphor, we sort of looked at this as a constellation approach. So we sort of have these different constellations of the Black web that we're looking at. And so for this project, we have 6 scholars at different institutions across the U.S. That sort of have unique research topics that range anywhere from like Black women's racial and gendered identity online to the collection and preservation of examples of effective labor by Black women in digital spaces. We have scholars looking at different platforms, Twitter, blogs, looking at their own digital existence over time, and documenting that as it may exist in different places, whether it's their own website that they've maintained over time or their blog that has been web archived elsewhere, or even looking at web content that has been created about them and sort of trying to gather that all in one place. Scholars looking at TikTok, and different how sort of hashtag and community exists on that platform as well. And so in addition to doing research about how Black social life exists on these platforms and what it looks like, these scholars are also building digital and web archives related to their research that I will be supporting them in as they create those. And so they are finding, as they sort of are familiar with the research side, they're finding that the thinking through like, how do I actually web archive, all of this content if I'm looking at a specific hashtag on TikTok, which involves so many different creators, and TikTok has so many functions where people can sort of create on top of other people and just, all these different layers of how do we get permissions, and it's not as simple as it used to be. And so sort of working with them as they come into these different questions of how how this sort of works within web archiving in general, and how do the digital affordances of the different technologies affect web archiving, but then also the affordances that are afforded that Black users are creating ways to use these technologies that are different from the way that they may have been intended to use, and how do you document that as well?
Thank you. And so one of the things that's also really important about this research project is that we thought it was critical to bring web archivist practitioners together with scholars. A lot of times we feel like within this area, folks work in silos. And so we're trying to do something collaboratively from the beginning. And so we're really excited by the promise of this work. And it's just a start in terms of really understanding and figuring out what is the Black web. I'm not sure if it's on your radar or not, but there's going to be a new documentary that's coming out around Blackness in social media. And one of our collaborators will be a part of that sort of scholarly conversation. But certainly very excited about what this burgeoning field of scholarship and research around Blackness and activity on the web and digitally born content, what that will bring about. And so what I want to do now is talk about how this sort of understanding of the Black web is what we hope will start to inform the curriculum for WARC School. And so Archiving the Black Web's WARC School training program is for memory workers that are affiliated with Black collecting institutions, whether that be community archives, public libraries, or historically Black colleges or universities. Those are the folks that we are trying to center in this project, first and foremost, but also open to the work and interest of other folks. WARC School is set to launch in the fall of this year. I don't know where the time went, but it is almost here. Rubber is about to meet the road. And so our WARC School has the intention of educating and training memory workers, community-based archive workers, to not only become web archiving practitioners, but also the creators of web archives and also the future users of web archives related to Black culture. And so in the pathway of trying to create WARC School, one of the things that we decided to do was to create a sort of working group advisory board where we brought together some of the brightest minds from around the world to help us really think through these questions. And so around the practice of the web. And so some of these folks include people that are here at the conference this week, folks representing Web Recorder, Internet Archive, Archives Unleashed, and also some of the leading thinkers at library information programs throughout the U.S. And so we started meeting in fall, hosting monthly strategy sessions where we problem solve and resource share and talk through questions around the practice of web archiving. And from that, we are starting to sort of map out or outline where we will go with our WARC School curriculum. And so we intend for our WARC School program to support this new generation of practitioners where they, like I said, they are empowered, because we want people to be able to bring their whole selves to this practice. Because generally what has happened is that the Black narrative of Blackness on the web has been neglected in a lot of ways. And we are really pushing against sort of event-based web archiving that typically for Black people is always based in tragedy. And so there is so much joy, there is so much information, there is so much culture. Blackness drives a lot of the culture that is in the digital space. And so we are trying to push back and open up the sort of web archiving practice that allows for folks who, like I said, have already been doing this work to build capacity to be able to move over into the digital space around web archiving digitally born material. And so with that said, we want to create opportunities for community-based practitioners who might not be formally trained as archivists, but they're also working as memory workers just the same. And one of the things that also is important that we feel about our work is that we believe in the power of naming. So the ability to better understand and describe and theorize the Black web in its multitude of digital communities, this research will help us to improve the practice of web archiving. So one of the things that we think that's important, and this is sort of almost like a pitch. So we are also recruiting our WARC School instructors. So I heard some really interesting work at one of our pre-conference workshops that Zakiya and I sort of talked through. It's like this would possibly be a great opportunity for one of our modules in our WARC School training program. So if there are ideas in which you all have courses or things like that that could fit within our WARC School as one of our WARC School instructors and within our curriculum, please see me afterwards. But yes, and so 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. And so so we're excited. This is a very quick, high-level overview, but I will be talking again about archiving the Black web a little bit later around building inclusive web archive practices. So you might be able to hear a bit more, glean more, but I'm happy to talk with you later afterwards about the work that we're trying to do. But that's it. Do you have anything else you would like to say?
Yeah, so I'll just add that, sort of as Makiba mentioned earlier about the research and how we think it's incredibly important to sort of interface web archivists and practitioners with scholars of the Black web, scholars of communication, and the technologies themselves. That is a huge part of work school as well. Is so we're hoping that we will, not even hoping, that we are working on sort of having modules that are also educational about sort of the history of Black participation online, whether that be sort of in, there's, scholars of like sort of how Black people were involved with the creation of the internet itself and in computers. And so really looking at the history overall, in addition to, digging into like the actual technology and how to crawl and how to curate and appraise collections, but also, where have Black people existed in this entire timeline of the web? And that being incredibly important and something that I know I can speak for myself, I found missing a lot in my own library school education around libraries, around sort of the use of digital technologies. And so we think that that is especially important in this program to sort of have a larger context.
Thank you.